Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX podcast, the best place for real estate professionals to learn the best practices from some of the top leaders and performers in the industry. My name is Andrew, and I'm super excited for today's podcast because we're doing things a little bit differently today. Rather than having a coach or an agent on the show, we've got a member from our very own REDX customer support staff, Allison, who's going to be teaching us how to set up and use filters and folders inside Vortex. Allison, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're very excited to have you, and it's great to have an actual member of the customer support because I'm sure we get tons of calls of, from people asking, how can I be more efficient? How can I better organize my leads? And you actually help those customers all day, every day, and walk them through this kind of stuff. So I think you're going to be the perfect person to have here. As I mentioned, Allison is going to be showing us why filters and folders are so important, how they make prospecting more effective for agents. And the best part is she's going to be sharing her screen with us to give us a live training on filters and folders right inside of our Vortex prospecting platform. So whether you're a current REDX customer looking for better ways to narrow down and organize your leads, or maybe you're interested in signing up for REDX and you're a little bit curious about some of the tools and features we offer, today's show is going to be jam-packed with all the information to help you find the exact leads you're looking for by filtering them down and then helping you prevent those leads from falling through the cracks by sorting them into folders. So just as a heads up, this podcast is going to be heavy on the visuals. So if you're listening to this episode in the audio only form and you want to check out the live video demos that Allison is going to be sharing today, head on over to the redx.com/podcasts, find the episode with Allison Huntington, and we're going to make sure all the video demos are available on that page. So Allison, let's get started. Before we jump into the training, the meat of the training today, will you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your role here at REDX?
Absolutely. So like Andrew said, my name is Allison, and I have worked for REDX for about a year and a half now. My current role is that I'm a customer support supervisor, but previous to that, I was spending hours and hours on the phone helping our customers, diving into their Vortex, walking them through how to do anything and everything in their Vortex. So I'm just really excited to walk everyone through how to use filters and folders, as they're very beneficial to your system. So
Excellent. Well, we're excited. Allison, it sounds like you're kind of the perfect person to take us through today's training. So thanks again for being here. Before we jump into these live demos that you've got prepared for us, I'd love if you could just give us an overview, maybe a little bit deeper than I went into, as to why filters and folders are so important. I kind of went over briefly what filters and folders are and what they allow agents to do, but why is today's training so important, and why is it vital for agents to use these features when they prospect in Vortex?
yeah, Angela, that is such a great question. The why behind it is just that as you have the system, and I guess as our customers have the system, there's going to be so many leads in there, and they could be so broad in that they go to multiple areas that maybe they don't want to prospect to, or they could be different price ranges that they want to prospect to, different things like that. And so our filters and folders allow you to just really narrow down what you want to prospect to. It also allows you to filter out your leads, put them into the folders so that you can follow up with them, and that you can have this consistent system to be able to remember to follow up with specific leads and to do so regularly, so that people just aren't falling through those cracks like you mentioned. It also helps you to organize them. So if you want to organize them based off of a specific county that you want to call, or a specific price range, or even like you can have old expireds that have been expired for a long time, you can filter those and just be calling specifically those older leads. That also helps you to create a specific filter a specific script depending on what you're calling, so that you're tailoring what you say to what you're calling. So there's so many whys to it, and it's just super beneficial.
I love it. I love it. Well, and it sounds like, depending on, maybe you're looking for a very specific type of expired, maybe you're looking for, like you said, a price point. Regardless of what it is, it lets you find exactly who you want to prospect to, right? Maybe your average, your average sale is $300,000. You sell $300,000 homes on average, and you want to up that to $500,000 or $600,000 homes. Well, you can filter filter out everything under that and find exactly those leads, or the new ones or the old ones. I love it. And
Exactly.
and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to go through not only expireds, but maybe for sale by owner, GeoLeads, for rent by owner, some other filter strategies that will allow people to filter regardless of what lead type they're doing.
Yes.
So a lot to look forward to. Let's go ahead and jump right in here, Allison, and see how these demos are done. I'm going to give you a second to pull up your screen. And while you do, I'm going to admit to the audience that I'm super new to filters and folders, just like a lot of our audience members are, just like a lot of the people that call you, in need of help. I hope so. So while you present here, Allison, I hope you don't mind me interrupting you with some questions with what you're doing. So that we can really, I'll be your customer today. So
Please do. Please interrupt me with any questions that you have. I want to answer as many things as I can while we're demoing this. So let's
excellent.
jump right into it then. Before I really move into the filtering and the folders, I do need to explain a little bit of how we organize our leads. And you'll notice here right at the top, there's this first lead here that is in progress. And then there's also one that's new. So basically what this is that's the lead progress of the lead. And so there's 4 progresses. There's new, in progress, successful, and archived. And so if you're using our dialer, if you call a lead, it'll be the status of new before you call it. And then after you call it, it'll either be in progress, successful, or archived. And so that is to help you to know what the progress is of it, if you've called it, if you haven't, if you should call them again, or if you shouldn't. Especially if you're using our dialer, it's just going to automatically be doing that for you.
Gotcha.
You can also see here that you'll see here up in the top left, it says it's new, it's green. That means it hasn't been called before. If I click this little gray telephone next to the phone number and I select one of these are called a disposition. So I called this number and let's say they didn't answer. If I select no answer, it changes the lead status, the lead progress to in progress. So depending on what you select here is going to change that lead progress. So if I say appointment set, that just changed it to successful appointment set. And so then just like you said, it helps you to then filter these leads. So yes, it automatically does this on its own, but then you can also create filters depending on what these statuses are. And that can be very beneficial as well. So
gotcha. So you're going to want to be applying these statuses or checking on these statuses while you prospect, because then you will apply these to specific leads. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So almost like a pre-filtering process.
Yep. And it's just a good way to keep track of your leads. So
awesome. Love it.
Great. So the next thing I want to talk about is the difference between filters and folders. Filters is you basically set a specific criteria that as new leads come into your system every day, if it falls under that criteria, it's going to fall into that filter. If that criteria changes, it gets removed from that filter. So for example, this would be very beneficial for the expired leads because your expireds, they're going to be expired for a specific amount of time, and then they could become active or pending or sold in a couple days, and you don't want to be calling to those leads. And so you can the filter will automatically remove those leads as they change status, as they change to active or sold from your filter. So that's the benefit of filters. And then a benefit of folders is that it's basically like a bucket. You add the leads to the folders and they stay there unless you remove them. This can be beneficial for specific, like say your sphere of influence. You want to add all of your leads to that because they pretty much are going to stay in that unless maybe something happens. They move somewhere else or whatever, and you want to remove them from your sphere of influence bucket, as I say. So that's kind of the difference between filters and folders. Does that make sense, Andrew?
Yeah, it totally does. And I'm looking here on your screen and I see that it looks like Vortex has these categorized and separated very clearly, right?
Yes.
So you have your filters, those are easy to add and change, and you have your folders. Those might be a little bit more permanent, but again, it looks like it's a very clear and straightforward. If you're familiar with REDX and you've been in Vortex, it's just right there on your sidebar, ready to go.
Absolutely. Yep. The
Wonderful.
next thing with that is that there are specific filters that Vortex automatically has. That
Hmm.
will be in every Vortex account. They're just always there. And then there's ones that you create. Same with the folders. There will be ones that Vortex creates on its own, and then one that you can create as well. So first, let's talk about these system filters right here. These are all ones that will always be there. And so here you can see that there's each of the lead types. So I
Hmm.
have expireds, GeoLeads, FSBOs, for rent by owners, and foreclosures. Up at the top, all data, that's going to be where all of your leads are. And so if you need a way to search your leads, that's a great place to go. My imports is if you have leads that are coming from another source, say like a CRM or from your broker, you can import them into our system and then it goes straight into the My Imports filter and you can call them using your dialer. So great way to manage your leads here as well. And then your trash. And then remember how I was talking about the lead progress, and you can see this lead
Hmm.
up here that says successful appointment set. This is where, like you said, it just automatically filters it on its own. And
Right.
so this lead right here would actually show up in this appointment set filter. You can see up here at the top, it's the first
Oh,
one.
nice. Yeah.
So depending on the lead progress, it'll show up in the filter that coordinates with that. So that's same with callback set as well. And then from there, we have new expireds, new foreclosures, new front burners, new FSBOs, and new GeoLeads. And all of these, they're different than the system filters up here in that the new expired filter will only show you leads that are the status of new, meaning they've never been called before.
Right. And is
So
that one that is going to already be there when you very first sign into Vortex and you're
yeah,
subscribing to expireds, or is that one that you have to create?
nope, that one is automatically there. So these ones that
Okay.
are blue, they have this blue icon next to new expireds, new foreclosures.
Hmm.
Those ones are automatically there. And then you can
Okay.
see below that, there are these gray ones that those are ones that I've created. So
Gotcha.
those are completely customizable, and I can show you how to edit those as well.
Wonderful. Well, we'll get into how to edit those a little bit down the road, but let's have you finish with these saved filters here. This is awesome.
Yeah, no problem. So then you can create a new filter by either clicking on this plus sign that's next to saved filters, or you
Hmm.
can come up here to where it says filters 3. I'm going to start here by clicking on this plus sign. And what this does is it brings up the whole filtering system that we have available here. So I'm just going to try to go through this as quickly, but also as in depth as I can. So let's say that I first wanted to filter to expired leads. You can see I can hover over it. I can put a check mark next to it to select it. It also selects canceled, withdrawn, and off market. Those are just other statuses of lead types. If you can choose if you want to prospect those to those or not, I would just recommend knowing your local laws before you
Mm,
contact any of them for sure.
nice.
So let's say today I just want to call expireds. So I have over almost 5,000 expired leads in my system. So that's a lot to call at one time. I want to
Yeah.
narrow that down. Um, so I want to call leads that I've never called before.
Okay.
And then I also want to call leads that I wasn't able to contact, but I've tried calling. And so I'm going to select in progress up here. Sorry, on the left. I don't want contacted or callback because that means that I have already contacted them, and I want to call people that I haven't been able to actually speak to yet.
Right.
And then the next thing, more filters. This is what I'm going to see under here under general and geo. First, I want to see leads that became expired. So it says here, show leads that change status. And I'm going to do in the past 3 weeks, just because I want more of the recent ones.
Right.
But let's say I wanted some older leads. If I wanted that, I could click on this drop down and I could do the past 1 year. I could even do in the past, and I can choose how many days, weeks, months, years. I can get very, very specific with this. I can do specific date range. I can, yeah, there's just so many ways that you can use this. Yeah,
In
so
your
I'm
experience, Allison, what are some of the more common ways or some of the common filters that people set up for expireds? I know old expireds are a popular one with some people we've talked to on the podcast before, but in your
yeah.
experience, what are some of the more common ones that people set up for expireds?
That's a great question. I would probably say that there's two of the most commons with expireds, at least. The first one is going to be a more recent one, and I would say either within the past 7 days, a week, or past 3 weeks, a month, like more within that month time period, 30
Hmm.
days. The other really common one would be a specific date range. And so this would be for your
Mm.
older leads. Let's say I wanted to call all of my leads from 2019. I would select January 2019, January 1st of 2019 for the first date. And the
Right.
second date, I would select December 31st of 2019. And then this date range will specifically tell me all leads that are expired leads in the status of new and in progress that are between those date ranges.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally, totally. So it seems like either brand new expireds or really old expireds.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Okay,
I
cool.
would say that's definitely the most common. You will notice here as well that there's two different date ranges. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that only one of them is selected. If you have both of them selected, it can cause some confusion to the system.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
you want to select one of them. Change status is just when the leads became expired or when they became off market, whatever the
Hmm.
status of it is. Imported is the date that it came into the Vortex. So I typically choose change status, but you can kind of play around with that and see which one you prefer. So just make sure you're
Gotcha.
only picking one.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to pick the past 3 weeks. I'm going to keep that pretty simple. And then lead information, I'm going to select has a phone number. What that's going to show me is all of the leads that have a phone. If I uncheck it, it'll show me all leads that have a phone and leads that don't. So just remember that with the filtering, the general rule is less is more. You don't want to have too many filters on it, or it's going to either confuse the system or you're just going to narrow down your leads too much that you don't actually have anything to call. So less
Yeah.
is more. That's just what you want to keep in mind while you're filtering your leads. So, but I am going to select has a phone just because I can't call the ones that don't have phones. So I'm just not going to even include them in there.
Right. And if you're prospecting through Vortex and you're using the dialer and you want to get through a ton of numbers at once, yeah, like to your point, you don't want to get too specific and only have 5 leads to call. You also don't only want to call a batch that doesn't have a phone number listed. So that's perfect.
Exactly. Yep. Great. Um, and then there's some other things that you can filter by here. Multiple lead types. What that means is that it comes through multiple services. So it could be a for sale by owner and also an expired lead. What that probably
Mm.
means is that their house expired on the MLS and they're like, I don't want to use a realtor anymore. I'm going to sell this myself. And so they list it as a for sale by owner and expired as well. So that would be a great lead to prospect to because you can go about that in multiple ways.
Yeah, I love that. What are some other multiple lead type combos that you have? Because the expired to for sale by owner makes sense, right? That's
Yeah.
someone who had a frustrating experience and said, you know what, I can do this better myself. But if they're still for sale by owner, they still might need help. Are there any other combos that are super common or
Yeah,
useful?
yeah, I would say another one of the most useful ones is GeoLeads and expireds. If you pull
Mm.
a neighborhood through the GeoLead service, you were doing some farming, you pulled this neighborhood of 50 leads. You can find with those leads, you can see a multiple lead type of expireds as well to see if they're already on the market, or you can also see if they are active or pending or sold recently so that you're not calling those leads. And so
Right,
that's a huge benefit of then not having to look at all of those geo leads and match them up to the MLS. That if
right.
you have both services, it'll show you that multiple lead type.
Cool.
Yeah, huge benefit with that. It can get a little confusing. So if you do have any questions about it, you can always feel free to call into our support team and we can walk you through a little bit more of how to use that one.
Excellent.
Awesome. The next way that you can filter by is folders. I'm going to go into this one a little bit more when I talk more about folders. So let's hang
Okay,
on to that one
wonderful.
for a minute.
Well, sweet.
Perfect. Then if you go to the listing tab, you can filter by non-owner occupied, or in other words, absentee owner. So if you just want
Hmm.
to find all of the leads that are absentee owners in a specific area, that's a huge benefit. You can also choose a specific price range. I'm just going to put 100,000 as the minimum, just for fun.
Right,
You can also put a max. You don't have to. Then you can do days on market, and you can also include properties without a price, or you can exclude properties without a price. And that's if you put a check mark next to it, and you click on the include button, it'll change it to exclude. So then it will no longer include any properties that don't have a price in your filter.
So this looks like it's a great, the listing filter here is great for what we mentioned earlier, where let's say you want to up your commissions or the commissions you earn, your average sale price.
Right.
You can choose the minimum at 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, and that way you're only prospecting to them, and then you exclude without a price, so that you're prospecting to people within your desired price range.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
That is correct. So huge benefits here to narrow down what you're wanting to prospect to, or to increase what you're bringing in. So
right. Nice.
Super great. And then the next one is property. So you can go off of the year built, the square footage, beds, bath, and then the property type. The property type can be difficult to pull for different services, such as like GeoLeads or for sale by owners, but for sure expireds will have that information. So just know that if it's not filtering by that, it's just something that we're not able to pull with that type of service. So
Gotcha.
But with the expired service, I can select, say I want single family residence. I also want residential. I also want, we're going to do quadplex and condominium and duplex. And I want townhouses too. And we'll do unknown. So I'm limiting what I'm pulling in there, but also I'm just narrowing down what I do want to prospect to, because I don't want to prospect to mobile homes or trailer parks. That's just not something I want to prospect to. So
right.
One other thing that I want to point out with this property type, and specifically how I'm filtering it, you'll notice that these all say include, and then I have check marks next to some of them. If none of them had check marks, then it would include all property types. With some of them having check marks, it's only going to include the ones that I have check marks next to. If I go through and I uncheck all of these, okay, so here it's including all of them. Let's say I want all of them, except I don't want mobile, home park, and office. I can just switch those to exclude. And so now it's going to include everything else except for these two. That way you don't have to go through and select a whole bunch of them. You can just select 2 of them and exclude them. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So if you don't select anything and they're all set to include, you're going to get everything.
Correct.
If you want to exclude a few, it's best to switch it to exclude and click the check marks, because then you're going to get everything else.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, but you really want to just pick one or the other to use. You're either going to include all of the ones you want or exclude the ones that you don't want. So Awesome. All right, now we're going to move on to the geo, or the geographical area of a part of filtering. So again, this part is going to be less is more. For example, if I select the state of Utah, and then I come in here and I select county, and I select Salt Lake and Utah County, it's going, basically the state will override it and it will include everything that's in Utah. So you want to keep it very minimal. So I'm going to uncheck the state, and I just want Salt Lake and Utah County. You'll notice here that there are duplicates. You want to select duplicates. What this means is that most likely through one of the services, leads came through as just Salt Lake, and then another service they came through as Salt Lake County. They're the same thing. You want to still just make sure that you select both so that you're not missing out on any leads. It's also important to pay attention to anything that might be misspelled. Let's see if there's any cities that I can find that have that.
Oh, there we go. Manorville.
Yep, Manorville right here. That
Manorville, Manor. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Exactly. So in this one, you would want to make sure that you're selecting all of those so that you're not missing out on any leads that you might want to prospect to.
Right, because that's typos that went into the MLS that we are pulling the data from.
Exactly. And the system's not going to know to merge that information, that it's the same. It's just going to make it another city, even though it's not actually another city. It's the same. So pay attention to duplicates. You will want to select those in your filtering. So yeah, you can filter by city, state, county, zip code, MLS area, and subdivision. MLS area, that only does apply to expired leads, because those are the only leads that actually come from the MLS. And then subdivision is most likely also only going to be expired leads. Depends on what we're able to pull from tax records, though. So Andrew, do you have any questions about what to filter here, and any questions about what we can filter by?
No, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward so far. You just go to, this was after you clicked, create a new filter. You're doing it for expireds. And then it seems like it worked pretty well for you to just start at the top and work your way down, right?
Right.
Leads and dates, folders, listing, property, skip the ones that aren't as relevant. Less is more. If you want to be really specific, start at the specific place rather than the more general, right? You went to the city or the county rather than the state of Utah. But it seems pretty straightforward where you can just start at the top, work your way down, and have a solid filter by the time you reach the bottom.
Absolutely. And it really allows you to make it what you want it to be and filter what you really want to prospect to, narrow it down. Yeah, so super beneficial.
Love it.
All right, I'm just going to make sure that I have everything that I want in here before I save it. So going to kind of go over this again. I have expired leads, status of new, and the status of in progress, meaning I haven't called them or I haven't been able to contact them.
Right.
I have show leads that changed status in the past 3 weeks. They have a phone number, and then I have a price, and I'm excluding any properties that don't have a price. And then I'm just excluding mobile home parks and offices. And then I have Salt Lake and Utah County. Perfect. So now I can save this filter. So you click Save As up in the top right, and you can give your name. So I'm just going to title this, let's title it Daily Expireds. So then I'll click Save, and then I can click Close. And look, I've narrowed it down to 78 leads. That's a little bit more manageable than 5,000 leads to call in one day.
No kidding.
Yep. So this one's a little bit better, a little bit more to call.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see those leads there. And now here on the left, you can also see that under my saved filters, it says daily expireds. So I can now come here every day and just come to this folder, and the new leads will show up here. And any of them that are older than 3 weeks will be removed from it. And then also any that have become active or any other status will be removed from it as well. Cool.
Awesome.
So then you can also do specific filters based off of other lead types. So for example, I have this one that's for FSBOs. It's pretty similar as well. If I click on here up here where it says filters 9, I can look down here on the left and it'll show me what's already selected. So again, in progress, new FSBOs that has a phone, has the status date of 3 weeks, which 2 weeks that I can see here. And then also the same counties. So it's the same as the one that I just created, but this one is specifically for FSBOs. And I titled this one First Contact. So
show me how you did that again. Go back to folders. And I saw that you went to your saved filters. You clicked on the filter.
Correct.
And then it brought up your leads. But then when you clicked on the little filter tab up there, is that just a way to double check, quick check, or edit your existing filter?
Exactly. Yeah.
The one you just clicked on?
The one that I just clicked on, the one that I'm in, you can tell that I'm in it because it's highlighted. So
Right.
I'm in the First Contact FSBO filter. It's highlighted. I want to see, okay, what is actually being pulled through this filter? So I can click on filters 9, and it shows me all of what is actually selected. And down under where it says more filters, it literally has them all stated there. So I can see exactly what's being selected.
And then if there's something you want to change real quick, you can just click the X next to those. Is that right? If you want to eliminate one of those options?
Yep. So if I want to eliminate, I can just exit out of it. So for example, I can close out of that one, out of the in progress, I can remove that one. Or I can come through here and I can add something else. Like let's say I wanted to change this to 3 weeks. I can change that. And now it says save up here. It also says unsaved changes on the left. So it's telling you, hey, you've made changes that have not been saved. So now I can click save. It'll save those changes, or I can click save as, and it'll completely create a new filter that is with those changes that you've made. And the First Contact FSBO that we went into originally will still be there.
That's amazing. So if you have a filter setup that you love, but you want to get more specific or more broad, you can basically duplicate that with the subtle changes you've made. Is that right?
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha. Cool.
Awesome. I'm not going to save it. I want to keep it as it is. So I just clicked close, and then I'm going to click, well, it brings up a pop-up that says you have unsaved changes to this filter. Do you want to save them? I'm going to click no to that because I want to keep it the way it is.
Okay.
So that is pretty much filters. Do you have any other questions about filters?
I want to come back. I want you to give us an overview of folders, but then I want to come back in a little bit and have you kind of create or show us some specific examples for a few different lead types. So
Okay.
for anyone watching or listening, stick around and we're going to show you some good filter setups we already looked at expireds. Maybe we'll do another for sell by owner example or for rent by owner example. But let's jump into folders first and get a good overview and a good view of those, and then we can kind of tinker and do some good real world examples there.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
So under folders, you can see that there are some different colored folders here. And then you see that I've created some as well. So this one that says hot leads, all Vortex accounts are going to have that folder. That's basically if you're dialing and you are talking to someone and they're like, man, this person is a hot lead, or man, I really need to follow up with this person ASAP. If you click on a name of a lead, it pulls up what's called the detail view of it. And you'll notice up here at the top, there's these two different buttons. There's two here that will apply to filters and folders. The first one is this hot leads. So if I click this, it'll add this lead to the hot leads folder. And you can see now that it's showing that right here.
Yeah.
You can also add it to a specific folder here by clicking on that, and then I can select which folder I want to add it to. You can also see that it's showing here, hey, this is already in the hot leads folder because the check mark is checked next to that.
Right.
So you can also create a new folder if you want and add it to that folder as well, all within just that one area.
Gotcha.
So we'll go back to list view here. And then the other one here is, so there's call sessions. If you have the dialer, you'll automatically have this folder. What this folder does is it tracks the last 10 call sessions that you've had. So every time you dial up a new set of leads, it'll track what leads are in that dial session or queued up there. And you can find them in a folder on that date with that time. That's so you don't lose any of your call sessions. If you end your call session and you want to come back to it because you didn't finish calling everyone, you can come to that folder and it'll show you what you have and haven't called.
And that you said that's exclusive when you are also subscribed to the dialer?
Correct. Yep. When you have the wave dialer, any three of them, any one of the three, I should say, you'll have the call sessions folder. The next one is my leads. So if you remember, I mentioned up here above that there's the My Imports filter that is specifically for if you have any data that comes from another place, such as a CRM, your broker, it's your sphere of influence, whatever it may be, and you want to import it in to our system and manage those leads through the Vortex, you can do that. And every time you import a new file, a new CSV file, it will create a folder under the My Leads folder. And it will say imported on with a specific date. Here, I'm going to just bring this open a little bit so you can see what it fully says. So you can see I've imported a couple different times, and it says the date and the time that they were imported on. If I click on these three dots that's to the right of the folder, you can click rename, and I can say, hey, okay, I want this one to be my sphere of influence.
So these are manually imported leads. It defaults to the date. You get to change it and update the name of that folder to whatever you want.
Correct. And so any leads that are going to be found in these folders, they will all show up in the My Imports filter. So all custom imports will show up in the filter, but then it also creates a folder for each one so that you can keep track of each individual file that you imported. They each have their own folder so that they're broken up that way.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's My Leads. And then the next one is GeoLeads. This one will only apply if you have the GeoLeads service. So every time that you use the GeoLeads and you pull a neighborhood, it's going to create a new folder. And so if you're in the GeoLeads filter up here, it's going to show you all of your GeoLeads. And that is not going to be very beneficial if you're trying to only call that specific neighborhood. And so that's where you're going to come down here to your folders, and you're going to be like, okay, I want to call these leads that are at 672 East, 660 North. And so you can come specifically to that folder. You can select the leads that you want to call and dial from there. So yeah, that's a huge benefit with the GeoLeads, is that it really does put the leads into each folder. and it organizes them that way.
Gotcha. And I know we recently released GeoLeads Plus. Does the leads you pull from GeoLeads Plus also fall into this folder and these subfolders?
Yes. Yep. GeoLeads Plus is going to work exactly the same as GeoLeads. It'll show up in these subfolders here. The only difference is that GeoLeads Plus provides you with 5,000 credits instead of 2,000 per month. And then it also pulls emails. So you'll be able to pull the email addresses for those addresses as well, and be able to filter by them and email from the system and all of that. So
excellent. And can you take these folders that we've got here, whether it's GeoLeads or your sphere of influence or whatever, can you export those as well to a CSV file?
yeah, absolutely. So if I wanted to export this list right here, I would click the check mark up in the top left. That just selects all of the leads in the folder. And then there's this other button. It literally says other. And then you click export. And then you'll see down here it says exporting leads. And then it downloads this Vortex CSV file. So super
Wonderful.
Beneficial there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because then you could, if you work in other systems, whether it's in Vortex, out of Vortex, maybe you want to print those out and just have them on a spreadsheet and highlight them. Some people like pen and paper more. Some people have other CRMs or other services they do that. That lets you do that pretty easily, it looks like.
Yes, exactly. And then there's also the option to print your leads as well. You can do print list or print details.
Nice.
Both of those are two options. That same sort of thing. If you want to be able to highlight them or take them in the car with you while you're driving around to these leads, you can have that information in your hands and not have to worry about your computer. So
love it.
The other thing that I want to show you with the GeoLeads, this folder over here, if you're using GeoLeads regularly, and let's say you have GeoLeads Plus and you're pulling 5,000 credits per month, that is going to be a lot of folders because you can only pull a max of 500 at one time. And so even just in that month, that's 10 folders right there that you're going to be at minimum that you're going to be pulling. Okay. So that's going to be a lot of folders. Let's say you want to organize those a little bit more. And this is actually something that I specifically worked on with a customer to help her to organize her folders better and more efficiently. So I've already created these two right here. This one says Orem. This is Provo. These are two cities where we live locally. I can organize these folders into those specific cities. So I'm just clicking on the folder, holding down my mouse, and then dragging it and dropping it into the city folder that I want it to be in. So now you can see that I have some of these GeoLead subfolders are now in the folder of Orem, and some are in Provo. And so I can, if I click on the little blue arrow that's to the left of the folder, I can close it or I can open it. I can hide those folders so that it's easier to have like a compacted list. And I can come back and come to the specific city that I actually want to prospect from. So I just click on the one that I want, and I can on the city that I want, and then I can select the subfolder from there of the specific neighborhood that I want to call.
And it seems like, and this is a point I wanted to get to, is it seems like there's kind of a fine line between being really well organized and really, having your leads exactly where you want to need them, and then being too organized or maybe having too many filters and folders to where you end up just confusing yourself. Do you run into that with people or customers a lot?
Absolutely. I have had multiple calls where I've helped customers and they've been like, I don't even know where to start. And that's why we set up our accounts with the already created filters and folders, because they're a great place to start. And the more that you add to them, the more confusing it's going to get. And so that's why if I was an actual real estate agent, which I'm not, I'm just on the customer support team and I do deal with this daily. But if I was an actual real estate agent and it was my first time using this, I would come in and I would just start calling from these saved filters and from the system filters and using the folders that are already here. And then as I start to get my system a little bit, then I'll create some more saved filters and some more folders to narrow down what I'm wanting to actually prospect to. I would keep it simple. I would keep just a couple of saved filters. In fact, I would probably only have two of these here. I would just have these two, and then I would use the GeoLeads folders, and then I would use the My Leads folders, and then I'll go into this
and probably
a little bit
hot leads, right? Because if you're going to start with a saved filter, new expireds, that blue one at the top there, and then as you call through those, you mark them as hot, talk to them, just mark them as you want to, but using the Vortex native filters and the Vortex native folders is a good place to start for new agents to not overcomplicate. I love that.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, we want to keep it as simple as possible. Again, like I said at the beginning, less is more. We want to keep it simple so that you're not getting so overwhelmed with it while you're using it. Because it definitely can get that way. And that's definitely what we don't want.
Absolutely.
So let's say I want to move these leads to just my ORM folder. I don't want it as a subfolder. I just want them in my ORM folder. So I select the leads by clicking the check mark, and then I click other, and then I click add to folder. And so you can see here that it's already checked next to the folder that these leads are already in. I'm going to uncheck that. That removes them from the folder. And then I'm going to add them to the ORM folder. And so this is a way to move your leads from one folder to another, to remove them from folders, to add them to a different folder, but doing it in a bulk way instead of having to do it one by one.
Gotcha.
So then you just click OK. Good there. You can also create a new folder there as well. So again, it's just the new folder down at the bottom.
Gotcha.
So
awesome.
Now I do know that we're a little bit short on time, so I have gone over quite a bit with filters. They're pretty similar depending on the lead type. In that, like, you're just selecting what you want to prospect to. What I do want to talk about now is how to use folders to be able to follow up with your leads. So one that I found to be super helpful is that you literally create a folder for every month of the year. So you can see here, I already have some created for August 2020, September 2020, October 2020, all the way to July 2021. So what these are beneficial for is, let's say that I called Kathleen here, this first one of my non-owner occupied leads that I filtered out. Let's say I called her today and she's like, "Hey, how about you call me in 2 months?" I'm gonna select her lead and I'm gonna click other, add to folder. I'm gonna scroll down 2 months. I'm gonna call her in January. And then I'm gonna click OK. And now when it comes, say it's now January 1st, which is a very busy day for real estate agents, I'm going to come here and I'm be like, all right, I'm going to call Kathleen back. Let's follow up with her. She told me to call her in 2 months. And so you can use this way to follow up with any leads. So
yeah, and I love the way that you've done this month by month, because I think one thing you could do is create a folder that just says follow up, right? A main folder called follow up, and then create subfolders that shows what you have here, right?
Exactly.
August, September, October 2020, just month by month by month, so that, when it's time, whether it's part of your lead stack or maybe you follow up once a week or multiple times a week, you just go into that follow-up folder, select the month that it is, and work through those follow-up leads. They're all in one place. You know that you've categorized them correctly. You know that you put them in the right place. And I know that a lot of agents even like to do it where if someone says, hey, follow up in 6 months, they'll follow up in 3 months, and then again in 6 months, and then again 3 months later. So you can drop them into those multiple folders and make sure that you are following up with each one of those leads, maybe more often than they requested, as often as you need to. But I love that. And that way, you don't have to label it, oh, follow up in 3 months, 3 months from when. You know that if it's January 2021, that's who you're calling in January 2021. That's a fantastic way to do that.
Yeah, and let's actually show what you just talked about there of let's say that you need to follow up with them in 3 months and in 6 months. So I'm going to put this first lead into 2 folders. So I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to click other and add to folder. And then so 3 months from now, that'll be February. 6 months from now, that'll be May, right? Do I have my months right?
I think so, yeah.
Cool. So that's where you're going to select those, and then this lead will show up in both of those folders. So I can come here to the February 2021. He's in that folder, as well as in May. So you can see down here at the bottom of his lead, it says February 2021 and May 2021 that he's in both folders. It's one lead. It's not a duplicate lead. He's in multiple folders.
Gotcha. Excellent.
Perfect. That's a great question.
Yeah, no, and I love that, because follow-up is so vital in real estate and so vital for real estate agents. And the whole point of this is that folders, really prevent your leads from falling through the cracks. So at the very least, like you said, for new agents especially, use the preset filters and folders. And then
Definitely.
on top of that, don't forget to follow up, because I think a lot of agents early on in their business, they say, I don't know how I'm going to get lasting business, right? I already worked my sphere of influence. I'm prospecting a little bit, but if you're not sorting the leads that you do prospect into into folders that you follow up with, then you're letting those leads slip through the cracks. And that
Exactly.
is the last thing you want if you're going to build a sustainable business. That's what we're all about here at REDX, is building
Right.
a sustainable business where you have opportunity for months and years to come, and follow up is key to that. So I love that. I love the way that you've got those folders set up there. Allison, this has been amazing. Is there any final thoughts or advice or any last things that you want to show us here in Vortex before we wrap up today?
No, I don't think there is anything specific that I want to show in Vortex. What I do want to say though is that um, the Vortex is going to be so personalized to each person and what they're using. And that is what our support team is here for. And so if you're needing help personalizing your Vortex, or you're needing more help on it, you're confused on the folders and filters, that is what we're here for. So please call our support team. We would love to help you with that. We'll ask you questions on how you want to be using your system. And we'll walk you through it. We'll walk you through how you could manage your system in the best possible way. So
Excellent. And what's the number that they can call at?
it is 1-800-731-7339 extension 2 is our support team. So,
Okay, wonderful. And if you call in, you might just get Allison, but if you get anyone else on our support team, everyone does a great job. So that's
absolutely.
fantastic. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I know this has been very, very customer centric, right? This has been very much
Yes,
for our existing customers who want to learn more about filters and folders. But I hope that what we've done is also enticed some of you who aren't customers, or who need better ways to sort, filter, and organize your leads so that you don't let them slip through the cracks. So if you haven't signed up for REDX in the past, or if you're thinking of trying it, you can even just pick one service. You can get expireds, you can get for sale by owners, you can get GeoLeads if you're really just into circle prospecting, whatever it is, because Vortex comes free with any of those lead subscriptions. Am I right there, Allison?
that is correct. You could even just get our dialer, and if you want to import leads from another system, like I was talking about before, you can still use the Vortex, use the filters, use the folders to manage those leads that you have. So we call it an a la carte system, that you can choose
Right.
whatever you want, and you get Vortex with that. So
Wonderful. And Vortex, as we've demonstrated today, is an excellent way to stay organized and prevent those leads from
absolutely,
slipping through the cracks. It's one of those things where you get out of it as much as you put into it, right? So
exactly.
if you really, you don't overcomplicate it, but there's a fine balance, and it's a really effective tool there. So Allison, thank you again so much
Yeah,
for
thank
sharing
you.
all this valuable information with our audience today. Again, if you're listening to this episode in an audio only format, or if you're on YouTube and you're not looking at the video, you want to check out these live video demos that we did, head over to the redx.com/podcasts, find the episode with Allison, and we'll make sure all the videos and demos that we did today are on that page. If any of you are watching or listening would like to continue this conversation online, maybe even continue it with Allison, go check out the REDX Elite Prospectors group on Facebook. Or if you're a customer, and this will be a great place to really discuss and dig into filters and folders, head over to the customer forum at forum.theredx.com. It's also in the upper right-hand corner of Vortex, if I'm right there, Allison.
Yeah, correct. There's a chat option, there's the help center, and then there's also the forum, where you can go to talk with other real estate agents. You can ask them how they're using their filters and folders, and then also any like REDX support employees will be there to answer any questions you have as well.
Excellent. So what I'm actually going to do is, as soon as this podcast is over, we're going to go start a new conversation in the forum about this episode of the podcast, about filters and folders, and we'll just continue this conversation there. So if you have any questions, we'll make sure that myself and Allison are both engaged there, as well as the rest of the REDX support staff, and that'll be a great resource for everyone. If you're new to this podcast and you want to catch up on past episodes and stay tuned for future episodes, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you like to listen. Just search for the REDX podcast and subscribe to be notified every time we release a new episode. So again, thank you so much, Allison, for
Thank
sharing
you,
with us
Andrew.
today. We will see the rest of you next Thursday at same time, same place, 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 3:30 Eastern. We've got another podcast with one of my favorite guests, Joe Rosen. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He's a great motivational agent. He has tons of tips, tricks, and tactics that he always takes us to school, and we learn a lot from Joe. So looking forward to that again next Thursday. We'll see you then. Everyone have a great day.